Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
Oh, thanks for asking. You always check on me, and I appreciate that.
I want to, yeah.
This is a weird one.
It is.
I wouldn't even say weird. I would just say this is an extraordinary circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And as is probably noted, if you clicked on this is a bonus episode, and this is literally 20 hours, if even that, after an incident at the Oscars 2022. Do you want to set up exactly what happened just for the uninitiated, just in case?
Yeah, as you may have heard in my Hey Buddy today, I started very I was getting very energetic and happy, and I was like, oh, maybe not for this one. Maybe we tone it down a little bit for this one. But yeah, so I'll be 100% honest about this part. Last night, Kate and I were sitting on the couch watching Upload on Amazon TV on Amazon Prime, and I got a text from Nick, dude. Are you watching the Oscars? I wasn't. I was planning on catching up on all the highlights today. We don't have cable. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to catch up on all that. And he was like, I'm pretty sure Will Smith just punched Chris Rock in the face.
Yeah.
And how many times did I ask you if you were messing with me?
I can look. It's at least 3. You're like, wait, for real, no. For real? And I was just like, yes, for real, for real. And then I had to send you a screenshot of what Twitter looked like. It was a random screenshot, and every single tweet on there.
I went straight to Twitter after I got that text, and then I got the screenshot from Nick. Twitter was back in rare form last night. It was 2007 on Twitter last night with the breaking news.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times you said for real.
For real?
Yeah,
dude, are you messing with me? Dude, is this a joke?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's insane.
It was on, and not only that, it was a moment in which Twitter is known for. Well, people are known to live tweet award shows and stuff like that. Yeah. And when I got on Twitter, that was one of my favorite parts of it. Like in 2009, when I got on Twitter, is that people would live tweet, like comedians I like would live tweet the Oscars. Yeah. And it's a fun, like, watch along kind of a group thing to do as a society or pop culture wise or whatever. And I get a thrill out of that. So it's super fun to watch, like an award show like the Oscars, especially with Twitter open. So for something like this to happen and happen so publicly and happen where, like, this is a thing that everybody will be like, hey, remember when? It's Janet Jackson at the Super Bowl. Like, this is like a thing that we all witnessed, except for Dave and Kate. But this is the thing that we all witnessed. And
then what was funny is
with each other.
Well, and people were literally like, I was reading texts from friends and tweets from friends and stuff that were like, I'm at an Oscar watch party. We've turned the television off and we are all gathered around the phone. And that was my experience too. I get that text from you and I'm like, are you serious? I go straight to Twitter. I haven't seen anything. I just got that text from you. I don't know what's happening. I don't know anything. So the first clip that I see is not what aired in the US, where they have the delay and they were able to like edit some stuff out. But I think I saw the Australian stream first, which was, I think Australian and Japanese are the ones that, those are the two that are circulating completely unedited. I didn't hear the joke.
Yeah. So basically what happened was Chris Rock came out to present Best Documentary, and which is always a hot button topic. It's what's going to happen this year? Is it going to be Michael Moore? Ooh. But he came out and it seemed to me, and more information will come out, but the information that we have right now, it seemed to me, knowing kind of how these things work, that he rattled off a few jokes kind of willy-nilly. Like, all of it was kind of, even the joke that he got hit for, it was low-hanging fruit. It was all just like, hey, how's everybody doing? Like, Chris Rock has hosted the Oscars before. He is a known entity on that stage. And people, this is another part of the thing that we'll get into, but like, people know what Chris Rock is about and what he does. And so he got out there and he fired off a couple of like just softball jokes. They were like, yeah, okay, like, we're happy Chris Rock is here. And then he said to Jada, I'm glad you're here. Good to see Will and Jada Smith. He's like, excited to see you in G.I. Jane 2 coming out. And people kind of groaned, kind of laughed, here's the thing. When he said it, I was like, that's not fun. Like, I don't remember laughing, but I remember in my mind being like, it's not really a funny joke. Like, what a reference. What a 26-year-old reference.
Yeah, that's my thing. And I'm willing to change my mind on this over the course of the podcast. I think in general, we will have a lot of episodes like this. where like it's weird. I'm almost afraid to say this. This is a new podcast. It's not like we have millions of subscribers on here or anything, but like, I'm not trying to be incendiary. Even now, the joke, like G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. I don't see the problem with it. Like, right. I agree with you that I go like, it was the groan that I heard wasn't even, oh dude, come on, don't joke about someone's appearance, because that's what everyone had been doing to everybody there all night long, and it happens at every award show. It does happen everywhere.
That is a constant at award shows, is people do it online. They're like, oh, so and so looked like this. If you wear a yellow dress, you look like Big Bird. Like, it's just a thing that people do.
We've celebrated Ricky Gervais for a decade now for saying some actually genuinely god awful stuff that everyone laughed at for shock value. But I agree. I go like, well, that's like, like, how old is G.I. Jane? You know what I mean? Like,
he was 26 years old.
They go like, this is, dude, nobody even knows what you're talking about. Like, half of the people, I guess Gen Z's not watching, so the boomers did. But like, yeah, so there was kind of a and he even said, "Oh, come on, that was a soft one." And now that happens, and Will Smith laughed like probably louder than everyone else did.
Yeah, he laughed
pretty hard. Jada did not.
Jada rolled her eyes the first time,
and then it immediately cuts to Chris.
Yeah, it's a wide shot of Chris, and then you just see Will Smith walk up to him, and Chris leans into him like, oh, he's going to say something to me. He leans forward and just gets slapped.
Which it took us a minute to even, it took us a minute to even know. You're like, everyone was saying like Will Smith just punched Chris Rock in the face. He must have an iron jaw. And because it happened that quick, and it did look aggressive. It was violent. It was a violent thing to see.
And my first thought was, he's a really good stuntman, because I was like, obviously that's fake, because that didn't really happen. Like, I thought he was going up there to do the like old man thing where you're like, all right, man, I'll fight you. And then did a fake, like where you stomp on the ground and it makes a thud, but you do the punch motion, you know, like,
because he did kind of step funny, like his legs kind of do. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I think maybe that's what the sound was coming from, his foot.
And then it wasn't. And then even Chris Rock said, Will Smith slapped the shit out of me. And it wasn't until Will Smith went and sat down and said out loud, like yelled off mic, like, keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. And then that's when it went, or I think before that it went blank on the American television. But and then Chris Rock says to him, really, over a G.I. Jane joke. And then he clicks
down.
Will Smith clicks into like angry dad mode. Like, did you not fucking hear me? Like, I got triggered from like sleepovers I had as a kid at people's houses. He clicks into like, keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. And the room was silent the second time he said it.
Macho Man Randy Savage voice. Like, it wasn't a shout. The first one he shouted out so Chris could hear it. The second one was like a scream. The way he said was like,
and everybody in the room at the second time realized this wasn't a joke. And and that moment is, I mean, you feel it in the room even when you're watching on television. That's how potent it was. It was
Lupita
really
Nyong'o was sitting right behind Will Smith, like face on camera and stuff, and you can see her face. Like, and we'll get into this probably more here in a minute, but it was like not just like, oh crap, this is going down right now, but like she looked like scared. Like, I'm sitting behind a guy that just ran on stage, assaulted somebody, and screamed on live television, willing to do that on live television, and I'm 2.5 feet away from him. Or whatever, may have been 6 feet, whatever the angle looked like. You could see her kind of look around like, oh, okay, like this is what's going on here, to like when it clicks for her, she looks like she's going like disappear. Like she's trying to blend into the scenery.
It really, I've never seen anything like this. I don't think anybody really has. I mean, nothing like this has really happened before. And the conversation that's happening today, including this one, I think is an important one. But I will just kind of preface this, the things that we say, like there are elements to this that we just don't know about as the public. And there's parts of the private lives of these people that I don't feel like confident to comment on.
We don't want to add to the speculation.
I don't know, but I will say that I do want to talk about, kind of break down what brought us to this point, because this is a thing. I will just say this to lead off this conversation. It is as I was watching it, I was continually shocked and then also simultaneously not surprised. But I was shocked that Will Smith got to sit in the chair the rest of the night and smile and get an applause and then win a fucking Oscar. If it was anybody else, he would have been escorted out of that room. Like, think about anybody else, like not only him. If it was Wanda Sykes who co-hosted the Oscars, if she was the one in Chris Rock's position and made that joke, it would have been a different situation. You know what I mean? Like it.
Well, not just that, but like
a purely man thing. This is a man masculinity thing.
Yeah, you can say that. I also think it's a Will Smith thing. I don't think that most other people in the room could have done that. Honestly,
you think?
I could be wrong, but like,
let's say like, what if it was like Rami Malek or something like that? You think it would have been like an issue?
I think so. I mean, I think Will Smith has been an A-list star since 1992.
Yeah.
Since 1994 or something like that. I mean, I know like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like he wasn't making movies, but like that's back when TV mattered more than it does now. You know what I mean? And everybody was watching that.
Like 95, like Bad Boys, kind of like around there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like Bad Boys was huge. Man, it is so hard for me. I hate, this is the first and only rabbit trail I'm going to make. It's so hard for me to have a serious conversation where we mention Bad Boys and my inner child wants to go, that was initially written for Dana Carvey and John Lovitz. And it's like, we'll get to the movie podcast in a minute. We're talking about Will Smith, but I genuinely feel like this is a guy, I don't know whether or not, I'm just going to say this and we can decide if we want to edit this out, but this is akin to, I grew up with Will Smith the way my parents grew up with Bill Cosby. So like when this stuff happened, it's like, dude, this guy has been in my home since you're saying 95, since I was 9 years old. This guy has been in my home. Me and my dad have bonded over more Will Smith movies than we have over genuine conversations with each other about our feelings and emotions in days. Like, Will Smith has been a fixture in my life and in my family and in a lot of our lives and families for a long time. So I don't know. Yes, I definitely think the larger conversation here is on masculinity. I don't mean to like toxic masculinity to devolve from that. But I don't know. I got onto Twitter immediately after that happened and people were saying we are watching an Oscars where legitimately the front runner for best actor may be escorted out of the building in handcuffs before the names are called. And that was how all of us felt, right? Then it cuts back from commercial, and I don't know if this was in the broadcast or not. I saw it on the highlights today, but Amy Schumer comes out and she goes like, "Hey guys, it took me a while. I was backstage trying to get out of that Spider-Man costume. Did I miss anything?"
Yeah.
And everyone laughs, and she's like, "Yeah, there's just like the vibe has changed." And they cut to Will Smith, and he's clear-eyed, laughing, pointing, and you're like, this? He just gets to hang out for the rest of the show. What is happening?
It was really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of layers here, and we're not going to hit all of them, but I do want to recognize them, that there is privilege going on here because of that, because he has not only worked and legitimately so worked his way into our hearts and homes. And I will say, even now, like, I am a Will Smith fan. If he's in a movie, it piques my interest. I might not see everything, but especially like, I mean, I'm a kid of the 90s. I watched all those things, like Will Smith was the Bill Cosby thing is perfect because it's absolutely true. Like, so I want to believe that this guy who kind of helped raise me and like introduce me to movie blockbusters when I was a kid, is a good guy, because I think it's the fear with any of the people, the Bill Cosbys or any of these people who, during the Me Too movement, is like, it's hard to believe that the people we watch are three-dimensional people that have inner turmoil or issues or domestic abuse in their past or whatever it is, because I think we're worried that might now tarnish or take away this fun that we had, or this like nostalgia we feel, or these kind of sweet moments we've had.
Yeah.
And it really does take some work to get there. And that's for everybody to decide on their own what you're going to do with that. But I think that is tough. And also, like, he is a titan. Like it is like the king. I mean, honestly, it's like the prince, because the Fresh Prince. But if Denzel was right there, And Denzel, and I am very interested in the Denzel of it all, because what happened during that commercial break was Denzel came over to Will. A couple people came over to Will, Tyler Perry, and Denzel came over to Will and said some things. And there are people who tweeted who were in the room who overheard it and said some things. You never know what's real.
100%. I'm not going to like ignore the fact that like as a black man, he had to work twice as hard to avoid certain stigmas and stuff like that in the entertainment industry. 100%. And it is like, I mean, there are rich white guys in the industry who have gotten away with much more than slapping someone on stage for decades,
and given an Oscar, despite it.
Right.
Roman Polanski, Woody Allen, Harvey Weinstein. There are so many examples of that for sure. And he has overcome tremendous obstacles just by being a black man in entertainment. That is noted, like without a doubt. And Denzel has as well. Like, and it's so interesting. That aside, like not talking race, but just purely speaking from the masculinity angle, and the whole, like, I will defend my woman thing. And then also, I want to speak to Chris Rock for a second, because I truly,
no one is.
Yeah, really. I truly don't think, okay. So the thing we didn't mention was apparently, and I was unaware of this, but Jada Pinkett Smith has been very public about her struggle with alopecia and her choice to shave her head. And I don't follow her on Instagram, but apparently she talks about it on there and on the Red Table Talk.
I also wasn't aware of that.
Her talk show thing that she has with her mom and her daughter. I didn't know this. My guess, best educated guess, is Chris Rock also didn't know this. I know a lot about Chris Rock just from following his career and hearing him on podcasts and stuff. And you get a sense that the guy off stage is not the guy on stage. On stage, he's brazen and brash, and he pushes envelopes, but off stage, and on podcasts and just seeing him on documentaries and stuff, he's a lot more quiet and contemplative and thoughtful. And I just know that he wouldn't do that. I really do believe that Chris Rock has honest respect for the Smith family. I don't think that there's no reason to believe otherwise.
Well, and there's nothing that there, again, I know we're not going to get into the details of this stuff because we just don't want to add to the speculation, but there's nothing that the Smith family have been through that he hasn't also experienced to an extent. He has also had his private life publicly dragged through the mud and had to deal with all that. You and I were both talking recently about, we were listening to his episode of Fly on the Wall, a podcast with David Spade and Dana Carvey, and he talked about it. He made the joke. I think Dana Carvey brought up, he was just talking about good joke writing, and he brought up a joke that Chris Rock wrote years ago about how a man is only as faithful as his options. And they were just talking about, like, man, that's so funny because it's so layered, blah, blah, like the technical aspect of the joke. And he kind of got very quiet and he was like, yeah, thanks, Dana. Like, that one's followed me my entire life. That one's been quoted at me a dozen times because, like, he's very public about the fact that he completely destroyed all of his relationships, you know what I mean? And his marriage, and that he's not happy about that. He's not just like, oh, well, like, it happened, but like, he was the bad guy. He was the villain. He was dragged through the mud. He knows what it's like to take on all of that. And I know that there was some tension between Chris Rock and the Smith family a number of years ago with the whole Oscars so white thing, and they were boycotting things. He came out and said some stuff about how she was going to boycott the Oscars, and I think he said, like, aren't you on TV? Is it a boycott if you weren't invited?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
There's history there, and so you can take, again, this is some speculation to an extent, but you could take that one of two ways. You could take that as like, hey, the Smiths are fed up with Chris Rock.
Yeah.
You could also take that, and I'm sure they are, as well as with everyone else's opinion. But like, you could also take that to mean like, hey, Chris Rock goes into this knowing Will Smith is front row. I'm hosting this section, or I'm introducing people right now. He may be best actor here in a minute. I'm trying to patch some things up, and he makes some lighthearted jokes the way comedians bond and connect and whatever with a little bit of ribbing. I don't think he would have gone out and made that joke, knowing what they've been through over the last couple of years since the whole Oscar so white thing, knowing that they had that bad blood. He would just flat out be a moron if he was like, and now I'm going to bang on her alopecia. I don't think that was what was happening.
If Chris Rock was like 30 years younger, and I could see him doing something like that, but he's so seasoned. That's the whole thing that is baffling about this. Nobody is new here. You know what I mean? Nobody is new. Like Chris Rock.
That's why I didn't believe you. If you had said Kanye ran out there, if you had said Rami Malek, like you said anyone up, but I'm like, Will Smith and Chris Rock are golden gods in the like the annals of history of Hollywood. They wouldn't do that. They're just too smart.
And they're well revered, well regarded, well respected, and they've just been in the game long enough to know not to do certain things, and certain things don't fly. And to be, which is a big thing I want to talk about here, being bigger than your reactions, like understanding what you want to do and what you are going to do, and how those are two different things.
Yeah.
I understand this isn't a who's right, who's wrong situation or conversation either. This is, I understand, I think anyway, on a base level, where everybody is coming from in this scenario. Everybody's motivations and reactions make sense to me. From a man's standpoint, from what has been speculated in the press, and then also just what like the Smith family, especially Will and Jada, have just said publicly, I was like, okay, like you can kind of connect the dots that are probably right, but until we hear it from their mouth, I honestly am just, it's not mine to talk about, but within their marriage and stuff. But what it appears to be is this is a buildup of a bunch of shit that has nothing to do with Chris Rock's dumb joke and probably even the Oscar So White thing. I don't even think that it's a Chris Rock issue as much as this is an amalgamation, a buildup of maybe times where Will didn't stand up for himself or his wife or his family. Or I know in his book that just came out in the last month or so, Will Smith talks about being a kid and his mom being subjected to and a victim of domestic abuse, and he has lifetime regret that he carries with him that he never stepped in and helped her and like fought off the attackers, and a lot of them were men she was dating, I believe, and so he carries that around, and that is a very common thing, especially men of a certain age, where you're like, you overreact, you overcorrect because you didn't step in or stand up at a time that you wish you had. That is a very human thing, but men carry that, especially because we talk about it here all the time, but we aren't as, cisgendered men people who are socialized as men. We are not taught to access the complex spectrum of emotions to know the difference between this is the thing that happened in the past. You can't change that. Here's the thing that's happening now. And a lot of times when somebody calls us a name or picks on somebody that we love, we see the perpetrator who we didn't stand up for in the past, and we just go ham on them. You know what I mean? Like that.
100%.
I've been there where I'm just like, I go hard on, I've done it with my parents where I go hard on my parents, and the heat is just a little bit too hot and my words are just a little bit too mean, and it isn't the right time and place to do it. But in that moment, it was a buildup, an amalgamation of all the times that I didn't speak up for myself, or all the things that I wish I would have said, and I have regret hanging back there, and I didn't talk it out in therapy or tell my friends about it because I'm embarrassed. It's embarrassment and shame. And that is a perfect storm for, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to clock this dude on live TV. And I'm not excusing that behavior, but I'm just saying that I understand it.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone well past a little bit too much. You know what I mean? In my, we've all done the little bit too much thing. Like I have a big issue with my temper. I've dealt with that stuff in the past. It's been something for like 11 years of marriage. It's probably been the hardest part of my marriage with Kate is like my temper. How quickly do I escalate a situation that I was 1,000,000% justified in the way I felt about it, and 100%, well, 1,000,000. If I'm going to go 1,000,000, I'll go 1,000,000 twice, and 1,000,000% unjustified in how, to what extent and how I escalated it. And that is where I go, this is where the entire night falls apart for me, and where I'm actually shocked at the conversation happening. I'm glad that it's happening, and maybe I shouldn't be shocked. I'm assuming the women watching this and listening to this, if there are any, are not shocked the way that I am, but I go, hey, I 100% will. Not to the extent, I don't know what he's been through because I'm not an A-list celebrity where everyone has an opinion about my life and my marriage and my private life and all that. But I do understand, like, hey, you lost it. That was completely messed up, absolutely unacceptable, and completely wrong. I'm not saying like cancel Will Smith. I'm not a fan of cancel culture. No. But I go like, it was 100% wrong. So let's take the correct next steps. The best next step, honestly, would have been to remove him quietly and peacefully, and when he won the Oscar, go, hey, the winner is Will Smith. Unfortunately, he's not here to receive this honor because, we have a zero tolerance policy at the Academy Awards. Accepting for him is so and so. Now I also understand. I've put on house shows of 100 people that were hard to organize. I am 100% understand that, like, you don't know what's happening. This has never happened in the history of television or an award show, anything like this. This is not like the Jerry Springer show. Like, you know what I mean? There's been violence on TV, but not in a setting like this. So I also understand they maybe were trying to go like, hey, we don't want to make it worse. You know what I mean? So maybe we just leave everything, or like, I don't want to get into like what they should have done or how it was done or anything. But what blew me away was the fact that he won the Oscar. It clicked with me like maybe 5 minutes before they announced, holy crap, he could still win the Oscar. He's still sitting there.
He is the front runner.
Literally. And then he did. He won a long overdue. I don't think, unless some jerk contrarian hipster kid will say like, nah, man, whatever, shut up. Will Smith has deserved an Oscar for 15 years. And then he went up there and doubled down on his behavior and got a standing O.
I want to talk about that.
I was shocked.
That is shocking.
Tell me your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I want to talk about that because he got up there, and I have his entire speech right here, the transcript of it. And I might play a clip of it too, because and I think he knows. So he's had an hour now to think through his thoughts, write down some things, say something very succinctly. He has an opportunity here because the entire room at this point, including the room I was in, 7 states away, it had that vibe of daddy just yelled it at the dinner table and threw a plate across the room and now is smiling and acting like it didn't happen and it's asking about our day. That was the vibe. And the energy coming from just, you could tell, like, just the rumbles, and anytime he would laugh or smile at something, everybody else would be like, okay, so it's okay to do this, and but so he had time to be like, okay, I fucked up. Here's the way to do this. And I guarantee you he thought about this. Maybe even talked to Denzel, maybe even talked to his wife. I guarantee they talked. I don't know. The Jada of it all, I kind of want to keep out of this because I want to keep it focused on the men, the perpetrators here. Although I definitely feel like she had something to do with it. They seem very like locked in with their decisions and stuff.
Well, yeah, they've been married for 20 years. She had something to do with it, whether she was in favor or not. Yeah. But
the speech was it was almost there, man. It was almost there. He said, he started to say a lot of things. It was like you and me on this podcast. We really start to say things and then we get distracted. And I get it, like full of emotions, crying from the jump. He has to, in 6 minutes, talk about this man that he portrayed in this film. The Williams family is there. He knows he has embarrassed himself. He's something with them. You can I would not wish that on anybody. I couldn't do what he did, but I know that he is a public speaker and he's a very eloquent guy. And it's one of the things I like about him is he's a very eloquent guy. The only thing that he needed to do for us, the kids in the room, and by that, I mean the world watching, was own up to his behavior, apologize for it, apologize to Chris Rock, apologize for the people that he took away from, because that wasn't just his night. That was so many people's night. And there was a lot, that was a selfish decision because he knows that he's Will Smith and he knows that if he punches out a dude, that's all anybody's going to talk about and think about for the entirety of the rest of the award show. And there were a lot of people that worked really hard to get there and that won. And I have a blank, my mind is blank on anything else that happened after that because I was just online and some really momentous historic things happened and we missed it because he threw a tantrum. And that is the truth of the matter. And it really, and all he had to do in that speech was say, guys, dad blew up. I made a poor decision. I'm sorry to Chris Rock. I'm sorry to the Academy. I'm sorry to my fellow nominees. And he gets there. He doesn't say that. He says, I owe an apology, which is something you pointed out this morning.
Right.
When we were
I
talking
apologize.
About it.
I'd like to apologize. Then go on. Please do.
Which is not an apology, by the way, guys.
Right.
Like, I would like to, or like, I need to apologize, or I'd like to apologize is not an apology.
Nope. It's an opening statement to an apology.
Yeah. At best. It's like you made a point this morning, and I'll quote you, which is like saying like, I should clean the bathroom is a nice thing to say, but it doesn't get the bathroom clean. You know, I'm going to unload the dishwasher. Oh, thank you. Wow. That's really sweet. Go on. Like, and then when you, it's in the same way that like, I'm sorry if I hurt you after somebody told you that you hurt them is not an apology. And we see it time and time again. It is so hard. I get it, man. It's hard to say I'm sorry. It's a Chicago song. It's literally it really is so hard to say I'm sorry, especially as men. And I get it, man. That's what I'm saying. Like, I understand everybody in this scenario. Nothing about this baffles me. It just baffles me that it happened on this level. And so the thing, okay, here's the thing that kills me. He says, I need to make an apology. Here's I'll read the direct quote. It's crazy just reading the transcript of it. Hang on, there's a point where he says, I want to apologize to the Academy. I want to apologize to my fellow nominees. This is a beautiful moment, and I'm not crying for winning an award. It's not about winning an award to me. He's about to say, like, I made an emotional decision, and I'm sorry for, like, that's what I feel like.
We hope
next.
That's what he's about to say. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like that's what's next. And then he says, you know, love makes you do crazy things. And that's where I'm like, oh no. Okay, the love makes you do crazy things. And I saw this time and time again in the last 24 hours, specifically by women and therapists, which are two groups of people that I try to listen to because I learn a lot when I do. And that is abuser language. Whether he means it that way or not, there are domestic abusers who, after they go and on a rampage and punch a hole in the wall or punch a hole in their spouse or do abusive things, when there's a come down that happens. And why you're like, oh, why do people stay with abusive people? And I'm not saying this is Will Smith. I'm just saying abusers use this tactic where they're like, you know, it's just my love for you, baby. Like, my love makes me do crazy things sometimes. And
you just make me so crazy.
Oh God, I don't know what to do. That has been used for generations because men have been using violence as an excuse for love, or love as an excuse for violence for far too long. And I've talked to a lot of my women friends in the last 24 hours, and they don't receive it that way, guys. And
nobody does.
Have more conversations with the women and the females and the minorities and people of color in your life, and ask them how they receive things, because it turns out it's not the same way that we think it is. And I am guilty of this as well, because I have also received the same messaging. I'm no better than anybody else, but I'm like, oh shoot, I think that this isn't coming off like I think it's coming off. And love will make you do crazy things is an excuse for behavior that is uncalled for and honestly detestable.
It's interesting because Kate, I showed her the stuff last night while we were sitting on the couch, and then she watched his apology video. We were talking about it today in the car, and she was like, yeah, I watched his video, and I'll be honest, I don't think there was one good moment in his speech. I never saw it going in a good way. I didn't think it was almost there. I genuinely, from the moment he started talking, was like, holy crap, this is the greatest single example of narcissism I've ever seen in my life.
Interesting.
Because I know he said a lot of things that sounded like they were about to go there. But the first thing he said, and this is what Kate pointed out, which was interesting to bring kind of the female perspective into this. By the way, she's invited to talk on this podcast. She is not interested in it. I want to get her on here eventually. And I know there's a lot of women in our lives we want to have on here, but I don't want people to think we just come on here and happily speak for them. But she was like, yeah, you know, I was pretty disgusted with the fact that, like, right out of the gate, he brings up Richard Williams and is like, Venus and Serena's father, the guy he portrayed in the video, which I want to talk about that because I saw that movie, and he I want to bring that up, put a pin in that. But he says, he was a protector. He fiercely protected his family. Mm-hmm. And then he starts talking about how he protected, and he says the names, I don't know their names, but the names of the actresses that played Venus and Serena in the movie. Mm-hmm. And she was like, why?
Sanaya and Demi are their names. Yeah.
Sanaya and Demi, I protected them on, and she was like, what? I don't mean to be rude. And I said this last night too, but like, man, I don't want to be reductive here, because actors and actresses, when I say actors, I mean and actresses, but like some of the people I admire most in my life. I am in awe of what they do. They have such a special place in my life, and I think it's incredible. That being said, they're actors. They get paid to pretend to be other people and to make us feel things with the way they portray these stories and the way they do this stuff. And that can feel special, but that's all that is. Will Smith is not a professional protector. Will Smith was not paid by the studio, so he was not paid to protect them. Will, you're not Batman. You're an actor. My guy, you're not Batman. You are not Vengeance. No one paid you to protect these people. They paid you to memorize your lines and do a good job portraying Richard Williams in a film. Mm-hmm. You, from the get-go, you got up there filled with delusions of grandeur about what you are. And there was never an apology coming, because the minute he got up there, he was like, man, and fiercely protect family, and I protected these girls.
Like Richard Williams.
There was security on set, dude. Your job description was not protector of anybody. I'm not saying he isn't a protector to his family or to things like that. But the speech, to me, that's the first thing I heard was, look at me, I'm a protector. And so even if an apology is coming, I want to set up this speech with the perspective of, I'm a great guy who did this, coming from a good place. And that's something Kate said. She was like, a protector, like that is just wild. And what's more, from her perspective, you've said this a couple times too, but she was like, no one feels safe or protected by that. We have, I mentioned my temper. We have been out in situations in public settings where someone says something slick to my wife and I go, bro, you want to blah, you know what I mean? Like, I've been the young hothead, and she goes, hey, just so you know, I love you, but I didn't feel safe. And this is not something, and I took that personally. That's how delusional I was then. Like, what, you don't think I can protect you? No, dummy, I don't. And what happens when you get shot or stabbed or get the crap kicked out of you? And I'm just standing there now. Like, I did not feel safe. I felt like I was going home with someone who was unsafe. You know what I mean? And it's like, you and I had that moment. It's funny, a couple weeks ago, you were in town. We had gone to go see, or maybe it was the next day, we went to go see the Batman, but we were out at a bar with some friends that night. And this guy walked up to my wife, to Kate, was just drunk out of his gourd, offered her a cigarette. She doesn't smoke. And like, she's on crutches right now because she's got a foot fracture. And he just like put the cigarette in her mouth, and she like had to pull back. And be like, oh. And I kind of looked at her like, everything inside of me wanted to just chest pass this guy into the wall and go, that's my wife, and blah, blah, blah. And I literally had the moment you and I were talking about what 90s song we were going to put on the jukebox. And I had that moment where I had to go, hey, stop. What does Kate need? And I like was looking, I'm standing 2 feet in front of her. So I'm looking at her. If she needed help, she would have looked at me and she would have asked me for help, and she didn't. And later on, I even asked her, I think she was like, no, hey, I'm fine. I'm fine.
She did.
And he asked her name, he asked her her name, and she told him. He was like, oh, this is so sexy or whatever. And he just walked away.
Come on.
And he just walked away and left us all alone, And so later on, I was like, hey, did you feel like I left you hanging? Because I really wanted to step in, but I didn't want to escalate it, and I also didn't want to cut your legs out from under you, because Kate is a badass. My wife is awesome, and she can handle herself. And she's like, no, I was fine. It was a drunk guy. He put a cigarette in my mouth. I said, no, thank you. And he walked away. And it was like, that was, I'm not bringing this up to go, look, guys, I've done it the right way, because that might have been the first time in 11 years of marriage that I did it the right way, by the way. You know what I mean?
But you had, and here's the thing I was there. I also had that same reaction that you did.
Right.
I don't know, like my man hackles went up, and I was like, ready to stomp that guy with you if you,
right.
But I had that too, which is, it just speaks to the whole, like, this is our wiring. It is in us. And but once again, it is our job to be smarter and better than our wiring. It just is.
Right.
And I just don't believe that, going back to his like what Kate was saying about his apology speech, which wasn't even an apology speech. We're saying that with quotes around it. Is you're right. And she's right. I think it's not an apology. And I think you could kind of play a word jumble with it where you move some things around and it could almost be an apology.
Right.
But he says that. He says, his first thing is like, I was a defender for these people. And the thing to say was, and of course it's easier on Monday morning quarterback. It's so easy, right? But the thing to say was Richard Williams was the patriarch of this family and he felt strongly about protecting his daughters. I think I took that a little too far tonight. And I mean, like saying like, talk about going method, guys. I'm so sorry, and just owning up to it. And that would have we would have been having a different conversation today.
Yeah. And an apology is, I'm sorry to the Williams family for making this night about something other than your story and the story of your father. I'm sorry to Chris Rock for, like negotiating with violence instead of, I'm sorry to my wife. I'm sorry to the Academy.
Yeah.
I hope to be like, I am sorry for what I did is an apology. I'd like to apologize is the introduction to that. And then the next line is, I am sorry for these, and it blew my mind that not only did he not, but he got a standing O, and we're just going like, I can only talk about like really personal experience, but again, I know I've got a temper. I have ruined nights for myself. I have ruined events, not the Oscars, not big parties, you know what I mean? But I've ruined date nights. I've ruined holidays with my wife. I've ruined things by pushing through something and handling it the wrong way. And there was a consequence to that. We didn't get to go, hey, you know what? You did ruin it. And you did smash that glass. You did yell this horrible thing. You did say this thing that can't be taken back. But we did rent the movie. Pizza just came out of the oven. Let's sit down and watch it and just enjoy it. Look, we're here. It's a night. I want you to enjoy the things we planned on enjoying. We can deal with this later. No. You know what happened? Like, we didn't watch the movie. The pizza got cold, and there are consequences to my behavior. And it's like, yeah, I'm sorry. This sucks. You can never change this, but this is the consequence, and the consequence could be worse, right? The consequence could be like Chris decides to press charges. He's not going to, apparently, but like if the consequence is saying, hey, you don't get to go dance at an after party to getting jiggy with it, which he did. Like, that is not even really a consequence. That's the bare minimum to say, I'm not going to go dance tonight. I can't believe it. I genuinely am like shell shocked by how it's being handled.
I think honestly on his side, there's a lot of buildup to the Oscars for him. He's waited a very long time. And in my opinion, should have won at least 2 times before this.
Yeah, he's incredible.
But and even Concussion, which he got nominated for a few years ago, he was incredible in. He's an incredible performance. What's that?
I don't know about Concussion.
Oh, really? The movie was fine, but I liked him in it. I don't know.
No, I'm just kidding. Will Smith is great. He deserved it.
I'll say Concussion, he was going for the Oscar in that one for sure.
100%.
But that, like, I think for him, he was doing his best dad impression who just threw the plate against the wall and is trying to act like everything's normal, because that is also why it was so shocking to me that he was like, fuck it, I'm going to go sock this dude.
Right.
When so much was at stake. And yes, he won the Oscar. Yes, he finally got this thing. Yes, he got to go to the after parties, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Because, nobody was comfortable. He knew everybody was talking about it. There was no real true celebration. It was all tainted. And all of that could have changed if he would have just taken the moment, literally 90 seconds.
Right.
If even that, and just truly apologized, everything that we just said, not made excuses for it, because this is what we want to do, guys. And speaking to men who are listening to this, I know from my own point of view, a lot of times when I overreact and I'm embarrassed by my actions afterwards, that come down, that usually happens that night or maybe the next morning, that vulnerability hangover of like, oh shit, I yelled some things that were really true, but not the way to say it, or you punch something, or you're a little bit too hot or a little bit too heated or whatever the thing is. And you're like, now I'm embarrassed, which is like a man's number one fear, right? Now we don't want to be embarrassed publicly. I've been in that scenario where I'm like, oh man, I made it weird by taking something a little too seriously, or even Chris Rock. I've been Chris Rock. I've made the joke that didn't go well. I joked a little too hard. It went a little too dark, a little too personal. I hurt somebody's feelings, and now I don't know how to walk it back and make sure everything's okay. I've been in both men's shoes, honestly, and there's something there that, like, if I've learned, it's one of the hardest things that I've learned in my life. But we talked about this on the I Love You Man episode. If you just take a minute to say I'm sorry and own up to your shit, be like, I was not my best. Don't excuse it. The impulse is to be like, oh, I was hurt. I didn't feel seen. I held my tongue too many times. I let a boundary be crossed a million times. I felt emasculated. Whatever the reason is, we can have reasons for feeling and reacting the way we did. Do not use them as an excuse. Own up to it. Be like, I know why I did this. I'm happy to talk about it to anybody who wants to, but I'm really sorry for my actions. I am better than this, and I will be better going forward.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. And everybody's like, thank you. And not only that, you become the thing that you were trying to be. I think if he would have said that, he would have become the thing where it's like, I now feel safe and trust this man in the room because he just owned up to this. And he just showed me that he has an ability to be a little bit softer, a little bit more emotionally vulnerable. And that is just a trait, an element in humans that we just trust because they just let down their guard in front of us. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not asking. And that's the important thing about this too, is that, like, the problem isn't that Will slapped him. I mean, it is obviously, like, that is the offense. That is the issue. But it's like, when we talk about, like, modeling masculinity that isn't toxic, it's not masculinity that isn't flawed. Like, that's not achievable. You know what I mean? Yes, it's achievable to live an entire life without smacking somebody or assaulting somebody. Entirely achievable, you know? But I just mean, like, everyone's going to mess up in certain ways, some more than others. The thing we're asking for here, the thing that, like, women are asking for, the thing that we're asking men of ourselves isn't don't make mistakes. Don't do the thing that you're going to regret. Try not to do the thing not try, but you know what I mean? Like, set out to not do the thing you're going to regret. And when you mess up, own up to it, because, like, this is a loaded word, but I use the word trauma just in, like, any instance that causes damage, right? Ignored trauma does not heal. What happened last night is going to continue to fester forever if he never just goes, hey, I was wrong, period. It doesn't matter what Chris said. It doesn't matter. Like, we could have been having the conversation about how what Chris said was wrong. We could have been having that conversation, but now we're not. Now we're having the conversation about how you reacted to it. And how you reacted to it was wrong. I'm the king of this. This was all, again, I hate to just air all my stuff out or bring it back.
No, you're good, you're good.
But every time I would get into these arguments when early on in our marriage, or even recently in our marriage, where it's like, well, yeah, look, I was, like, yelling about this, but it's because you blah, 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 blah. Look, yeah, she was wrong. She shouldn't have blah, 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 blah. But now we're not having a conversation about that. Now we're having a conversation about what I said in response to that, and I can never put those words back in my mouth. And if I don't, and I've seen this in my own life. I think we have all probably seen this to an extent, either through vicariously through a loved one or a friend, or in our firsthand experience. Like, when you don't face that trauma and just go, hey, it doesn't matter what you said. It doesn't matter why I did what I did. I did it. And it was messed up, and there was no excuse for it. And I'm sorry, and it was wrong. And that doesn't even fix it. I'm going to have to take steps to build trust in you, that you know that, like, next time I'm not going to do this. And next time I'm going to remember these feelings. And next time, without doing that, the next time the fight happens, you go there again. Will Smith slapped someone before. Do you remember that? I just saw this before. There was a thing, and we all cheered him on when he did it. There was a thing on the red carpet. This guy, like, went in to give him a hug. I think he tried to kiss him or something, or I think he sprayed him with water, or he threw some, I can't remember. Some guy assaulted him on the red carpet, trying to do a funny bit for a video that was just not okay. And it really bothered Will Smith. He was, like, getting on him, and he, like, pushed him off. And he was like, man, what are you doing? And then there was just this, like, there was a quick beat. And then he just kind of, like, it wasn't hard, but just kind of like a fairly, like, a significant, like, backhand in the face, and, like, slapped him. And we all watched that, and we're like, dude, Will Smith is the GOAT. This guy tried to do this. He ain't taking that. He smacked him in the face. I did. I was like, that was awesome. Will Smith slapped some guy on the red carpet last night. that's how we get here. We all celebrated that.
That's how we get
and
here.
That's how we get to those, like, we have that fight with, I have a fight with my wife, and then I gaslight her for what she did to make me react that way. And next time I act the same way, and maybe I take it farther and I say something even worse, or I yell a little louder, or, and it's like, no, you have to face this trauma or it doesn't heal, period. Nothing so far is healing with that issue last night. Like, nothing is getting better.
And that's what, this is a good time to talk about that part of it, because I've seen a lot of dudes today, especially, and women too, like online, a lot of tweets and posts and stuff where it's like, hell yeah, like, protect your woman. Like, I want to talk about the slap of it all, because there are about 12 things roughly that you can do in that situation that aren't violent acts. Their violent acts rarely have the intended result that you can have, that you are wanting it to have anyway. The message that you want Chris Rock to receive is, hey, you disrespected my family. Please don't do that. Chris Rock, seemingly, again, don't know him, is an open guy who's good at conversation, who can, I feel like you could say that to him and would have had the same effect. If he would have yelled that from his seat, like, please don't disrespect hey, Chris, I'm sorry to stop in front of all this, but like, that was uncalled for. That, I still don't think that personally is the right thing to happen, but he would have still been shook by that moment and been like, you know what, no more jokes. Let's just get on to the thing. And people would have been like, man, what a way to handle that. Or in my opinion, the time to do that would have been backstage after the show, grab Chris Rock. You're telling me that you don't know Chris Rock? Like, you have his phone number, so you know somebody that does. Grab Chris Rock if you're Will Smith and be like, hey man, like, I know you're doing your jokes and stuff like that. This is a sensitive issue. I really wish you'd run this past some people before you said this. That was disrespectful. Like, please be respectful to my wife, to my family. You know, you come at us, great. I get it. It's all well and good. It's jokes, but know that, like, your words have real world consequences in my house. And like, 100% Chris Rock would be like, I am so sorry. You're absolutely right. I hear you, man. Like, let's bury this hatchet. And that is the time to do it. Not in a time that is going to come off as like a narcissistic move to be like, I'm going to, on the world stage, I'm going to like clock this dude, protect, quote unquote, or defend my woman. And then overshadow so many other people in that room who had some really beautiful moments coming up. And I'm not talking about the Jessica Chastains and stuff of the world, like the movie stars and stuff like that, but she won last night and I'm glad she did. Well-earned performance. But I'm talking about like the Jane Campions or the Riz Ahmeds or these people, like the beautiful moment that happened that nobody was paying attention to, man. It honestly makes me mad for him, because I have a soft place in my heart for Questlove, and Chris Rock was announcing the winner that he won an Oscar for a documentary he made, that Questlove made for his mom, who was there. Yeah. And because mom turned him on to soul music when he was 5, and he made this documentary about it, which is great and everybody should check out. But it has this like, and he's trying to give this emotional speech, and he has to stop in the middle of it because the room is not paying attention to him. Because Will Smith, in his moment of reactive measures and I mean, honestly, battery of slapping Chris Rock, has changed the tone of the room. And that is a selfish, and anytime anybody, especially men, we react in that way and we punch the wall, or we're like, well, I said I wanted it. Like, we just have that moment of like toddler tantrum. We are saying what I want and what my needs are more important than anything else going on here. And I understand there are legitimate, probably reasons that we react that way. But I am saying that is not an excuse to act that way. We have as men, or as evolved people, we have a responsibility to be better than our nature. We have a responsibility to know ourselves so deeply that we're like, man, this is a trigger for me, or this is a thing that I normally blow up at. Yeah. I'm going to kind of keep watch out for these behaviors. And when they pop up, like, take care of them like you would a problem child in your psyche or whatever it is. But like, it's our job to, and then, like you were saying, like, own up to it when we do have those explosive moments or whatever it might be. Like, take care of your own shit. But that is just completely, and I do have sympathy for Will Smith for personal reasons, but that reactive measure is what I'm judging him on. I'm basing him on right now, and that was not okay for multiple reasons.
Yeah, and that's a great way. I think what you said too, like, understand your nature. It's good to reemphasize, like, hey, understand this is programmed in you. We talked about this on another episode, you know what I mean? But the idea that like this is in you, this is in your nature, because there was a time when we had to stand at the mouth of the cave and beat off the big bad monsters with a bigger stick. And like that time is gone. And so now,
we're not in tribes anymore, but we still have a tribalist mindset. We still look for like, that's why movie stars are a thing. We look at the Hemsworths or Jason Momoa, and we're like, that's going to be our leader in our brains, whether we realize it or not.
And so it's like what you're doing by letting people know that like we can negotiate in these situations with violence is that like what we're doing. I'll die on this hill. Anybody who defends Will Smith's actions last night and says he doesn't need to apologize because he was justified has opened the door to say violence is an appropriate response to absolutely every single interaction, because there will always be a perspective that can justify it. Always. Whether it's PETA, who's mad about what's on your plate, whether it's PETA, who's mad about how your clothes got made.
They're so mad, you guys.
PETA's really mad, you guys. But like, you know what I mean? There will always be someone who can say, there's, you know, that episode of, this is a little bit of a trail, but like that the Good Place, that show about like heaven and hell and the afterlife. They talk about how like, hey, it's really hard nowadays to make any decision that doesn't have some kind of negative impact. If you own an iPhone, there are people in China who hate you. If you eat a certain type of food, there are people probably on your street who hate you. If you believe a certain thing politically, there will always be a justification for violence if there is ever a justification for violence. And that's something that like I am discovering this week that I believe, you know what I mean? Like I remember having a conversation about like the right to bear arms with a friend. And he was like, what if someone broke into your house or blah, blah, that whole conversation about like, you build up these insane scenarios. Well, what if there's 12 ninjas that break into your house and they all want to rape your wife? And it's like, then can you shoot them? Like, these are insane.
What if it's the three ninjas from that movie in the 90s?
Yeah, they would never.
No.
Rocky would never. No, but they three ninjas knuckle up. We need to do an episode on that. There's always a justification for it if there's ever a justification for it. And I'm just now realizing when you get into these situations, you go like, you can make a very solid case for why Will Smith should have slapped Chris Rock if you believe that violence can sometimes be the answer. And so it's like, that's just a conversation that's not worth having. And you know what we aren't spending enough time talking about either, that at the very least briefly we should, is what a freaking G Chris Rock was. We can get into the joke. We could be having the conversation about what was wrong with the joke if that slap hadn't happened, but we're not going to. I don't want to have that. But like that dude ate it on national television in front of 12 million people, and now on the world stage in front of billions of people, probably at this point. He ate it. He slowed down. He could have, again, justified if it's ever justified, it's always justified. He could have responded violently, maybe not physically, because Will Smith is like 8 times his size, but like at the very least with words. Like Chris Rock has weapons. Chris Rock is
one of them. One of them played Muhammad Ali. The other one played Pootie Tang. You know, there's a difference.
But like I guarantee you, there's no one else I would want on my side other than Chris Rock if it's a battle of wits. You know what I mean? That guy has an unbelievably sharp tongue, and he said over a G.I. Jane joke, man. And he's shocked. And then he just goes like, the second time, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. And he goes, hey, I will. And he just pauses. And I never really understood what he says after that. Did he say rock and roll, or what does he say? Chris Rock,
I don't know.
But he just kind of like mumbles something kind of unintelligible, like, oh, man, like, you know.
He says the most interesting moment on television history, folks.
And then introduces the deal, announces the winner,
fucking pro.
Stands at the back,
honestly,
while his face is probably swelling up, and walks off stage.
Didn't cry his eyes out, which is what I would
100%. 100%. And this is the thing I wanted to tie back to. I forgot about this little thread, but I was just like my hackles go up right now thinking about Will Smith walking on stage and the way that speech started, because he says, you know, Richard Williams fiercely protected his family. There's a scene in King Richard where they're practicing on the courts in Compton, and there's just like gang of just like no good dudes off to the side, and they're catcalling the oldest daughter, not Venus or Serena. And the whole time, and she's sitting there studying, and they're catcalling. And finally he goes, "Hey girls, go ahead and get in the car, like gather up the balls and get in the car." And as they're going, the guys do it one more time. "Hey, oh, I love to watch her leave," or something like that. And he turns around and he walks up to the guys. He's like, "Hey, listen, that girl right there is going to make something out of herself. She's going to get out of this place. She's not going to get mixed up with you guys. She's studying right now. When we're here, when we're doing this, please ignore her. Leave her alone. Just leave. Just don't go there." And he's like, "Man, I'll do whatever I want." He's like, "Not with her. You won't, because that's my daughter. And I decide who she talks to. And she's not going to get into this with you guys. So please just back out of it." And then the guys just kick the crap out of him. They knock him out. They punch him in the face. He falls on the ground. I think they kick him a couple times or something. And he lays there. And the guy goes, "I'll do whatever I want," or he says something. You know what I mean? And then they walk away. Their daughters watch this man. They watch their daddy get the crap kicked out of him. And then he stands up. He holds his head high and he walks back to the van. He doesn't lay a finger on these guys. And I'm going like, that's what made me so mad initially. Like to the point of tears, not because I care about Chris Rock or even honestly what happened, but because that's a great movie and Will Smith killed it. And I cried in the movie because it was in a very emotional, it was a great depiction of a really strong father figure who I don't even want to get into the Richard Williams of it. Everyone has their own toxic things. And I've heard all sorts of, like they make him look like a saint. I'm just talking about the movie. In the movie, he is a saint. He's a great guy. They portray him really well. And tonight was those girls' chance to honor their father, that they watched him get the crap kicked out of himself on the courts in Compton and stand back up and walk and go into the van and get in there and act like nothing ever happened, because he cares about his girls and he's going to work hard. He has a plan to get them out of this situation that's unhealthy for them. And what he could have done and been justified in doing by a lot of people's standards was pick a fight with those guys. And he might have gotten shot. He might not. The girls might have gotten something done to, like, he could have escalated this thing, but he didn't. And that's why when they approached Venus and Serena Williams about making a movie about them, they said, "We want to make it about our father. He was an incredible man who got our family out of Compton, and we wouldn't be here without him because he was that kind of guy." And Will Smith,
that was their decision.
And Will Smith co-opted his moment of failure, and compared himself to the guy that made a different decision when he was in that situation. And that to me was where I'm going like, this is narcissism to a T, my guy, because you're not even understanding this wasn't about you. This still isn't about you.
It's apocryphal. It's still not. It's apocryphal too, because it's that rewriting of history that we try to do. You know, sometimes we try to like reverse, like kind of do these mental gymnastics to get to the point where like, no, I think this actually is something he would do, you know? And like, and every time it showed Venus and Serena and their mom and everybody in the back, it was just like, the look on their face was just kind of shock.
Yeah.
He knew he had all of the things, and he still made the decision he made. And at the end of the day, I'm just sad. It just makes me sad. And this is, like we said, this is the time of recording this, not even 24 hours after the incident. And I really hope that there's some good stuff to come. Yeah. There's so much, just generations of the wrong way to quote unquote be a man is represented there. And now is the time to talk about it.
I think a great thing to remember about that too, like what you're saying, like you hope there's more great stuff to come, is that like there isn't a point at which it's too late. It's like when Will Smith got up there and gave his speech, Kate mentioned that. She was like, you could see he shouldn't have a microphone. His mouth was still quivering. His hands were shaking. He wasn't just upset. That guy was furious still. And I'm not saying he shouldn't have been. I don't know what was going through his mind. I don't know what kind of day or year or month that guy has had. And I know I've been in lesser situations when I'm not on the world stage, where I just had a day and I snapped on someone who did not deserve that. And I was not ready to own up to the mistake that I made 15 minutes later. So I'm not saying that but I think it's something good to remember as men, that like, hey, you do something that you shouldn't have done. That happens. We're people. We're humans. That happens. It is to an extent unavoidable. You know what I mean? I'm not saying trauma and abuse are, but like, I don't want to make excuses for that. But you get to own up to it, and you can make it better. You don't own up to it. You run from it. You try to kick it. You try to make excuses for it. It's still not too late. You still have, there is always the opportunity to step up and go, hey, my bad, doesn't go away. And so I think, again, this guy's been in my living room since I've been 5 years old. I am hoping and expecting to an extent like that moment still of, hey, here's what I should have said. And it's probably coming,
even if it's like a publicist calling him and telling him to do it, like, which I don't think it will be. He seems to have a pretty good, despite everything we just said in the last hour, pretty good head on his shoulders. But I really do believe in his heart that he wants to be a good man. And there's a thing that he says that I want to highlight from as we wrap up this part of the conversation. Like that he says in his acceptance speech. I believe that he believes this. Yeah. When he says, I want to be a vessel for love, I believe that. When he says that he's called to love, I think that's what he thought he was doing when he's defending Jada. And so many men, myself included, thought I was loving the people in my life because I decided how they needed to be loved best. And this is in wrapping this up, this conversation today, I want the men listening to this, when you have these reactive moments, even, way before you do, get to know yourself, why you do the things you do, go to therapy, get good friends, talk to your spouses, like whatever it might be, like really get to the nitty gritty, read books about the things, connect with the people that have been through similar things, the trauma or whatever that you've been through. And then number 2, ask the vulnerable people in your life, the women, the kids, the people of color, the any of the minorities or the people who aren't maybe as privileged as you because you are a man. And just by nature of that, you do have a lot of privilege. You were born on third base, my guy. That's just the way it is in this world. Ask them how certain responses make them feel. Ask them what makes them feel safe. Ask them what makes them feel protected. Ask them if that's even important to them. Communicate how you feel and be open to whatever they have to say. And I guarantee you it'll change your life, man. It's changed my life to just be
Absolutely.
To just shut up and listen. Ask the important questions, things that I feel like I should have known already. Ask those questions because that is the true way that we get to love the people in our life.
That's so good, man. I'd love to end still just on to keep our tradition going of ending on a movie quote. With a quote from King Richard. There's a scene in the movie where the girls start to play these junior tennis matches.
Yeah.
And they're not handling their success or the opposition to that success the way he thinks they should. And so he sits them down and makes them watch Cinderella over and over and over again. And this is his quote after one of the viewings. He says, "The point is, she was humble. No matter how the people treated her, no matter how they disrespected her, she stayed calm. She kept her heart clean. She was humble. Now we're going to go out here and we're going to play these matches and we're going to compete, but we're going to stay humble or else we're not going to do it."
Hey guys, Nick here with a little PS from our conversation. Literally, as Dave and I were having this conversation, Will Smith and Chris Rock both issued statements of apology, and I would just want to read them really quick in case you haven't had a chance to. Will Smith wrote on Instagram, "Violence in all of its forms is poisonous and destructive. My behavior at last night's Academy Awards was unacceptable and inexcusable. Jokes at my expense are a part of the job. But a joke about Jada's medical condition was too much for me to bear, and I reacted emotionally. I would like to publicly apologize to you, Chris. I was out of line, and I was wrong. I am embarrassed, and my actions were not indicative of the man I want to be. There is no place for violence in a world of love and kindness. I would also like to apologize to the Academy, the producers of the show, and all the attendees and everyone watching around the world. I would like to apologize to the Williams family and to my King Richard family. I deeply regret that my behavior has stained what has been an otherwise gorgeous journey for all of us. I am a work in progress. Sincerely, Will." And at the same time, Chris Rock posted, "As a comedian, it can be difficult to understand which lines are to be crossed and which ones aren't. Last night, I crossed a line that I shouldn't have and paid the enormous price of my reputation as a renowned comedian. Comedy is never about poking fun at or making light of people with major ordeals happening in their lives. Comedy is about using real-life circumstances to create laughter and bring light to an otherwise dark world. With that said, I sincerely apologize to my friends Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith, and the rest of the Smith family for my disrespect and disregard I displayed, which was unfortunately broadcast for the world to see. I hope that with time, forgiveness can come of this situation, and we can all be better, more considerate people in the end."